Welcome to Season 4 of She Lancer, Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. I'm your host, Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and this podcast are the audio versions of my live Q&A chats on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of the live Q&A chats, come on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We talk about voiceover, the business of voiceover, audiobooks, and so much more. Find more information on my website, voiceoverangela.com. Enjoy today's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me and everyone else here today again for another live community chat here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips and tricks and techniques and things that I stumble over every day in my own voiceover business. And then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or five. So that's what we're doing today. If you're not new here, then you know that every week we have a new poll, which is associated or pretty much what we're talking about today, today's topic, right? So today's topic is, how do you record and edit? And you've got a few different options. Yeah, I guess you do. Either the punch and roll method or the clicker method, or I don't know what these are. Please explain. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'm hoping throughout today's conversation, we'll not only talk about the differences between punch and roll and the clicker method, but also talk about other ways that maybe you can speed up your own editing process. I know editing is sort of a bear for most of us, especially in the beginning when we're like, I don't know what the heck everything does. I don't know how, I can't find that perfect harmony in my effects. I'm spending 10 hours editing a singular hour of audio. Please help me reduce this time. And just a quick note on that, it does get faster the more you do it, just like anything else, just like learning to ride a bike, just like anything else that you're learning how to do. It's going to take longer in the beginning. It does get faster the more and more you do it, because you start to find ways to streamline this process. Maybe you can turn a bunch of micro actions into one macro, or, some way to speed up the process. And hey, if you're one of those people that you just absolutely hate the editing process, don't want to do anything, don't want to come anywhere near it, you can always outsource the editing part if you wanted to, but ideally you want to keep all of the income that you make for yourself and not have to pay to outsource your editing work. And also, if you know how to effectively edit audiobooks, to edit master format and meet the file standards and all those things, offer those services on platforms like Fiverr and Upwork to other audiobook narrators and or voice actors who need a little bit of editing help. Just a little extra income, and you might be really helping somebody out of a bind. So food for thought. Anywho, that's the end of tangent 1, I think. So far, we have 26 votes, and it looks like the majority of you do the clicker method, which is pretty much what I do. And what that is I use a dog training clicker. I apologize to any of you who have trained your dog with a dog clicker and they just came running looking for a treat. I apologize. But essentially, that's all it is just a dog training clicker. You can get these on Amazon, a couple of them for like $5-10 or something. And what it does is, you're recording and you make a mistake, you click the clicker and it makes a sharp line in your waveform. So when you go back and edit, you can clearly see where there's a mistake made. And if you can't use, excuse me, a dog training clicker because you have dogs that'll come running every time you make a mistake, You can clap your hands, you can cluck your tongue, you can snap your fingers, anything that's going to make that clear mark in the waveform to clearly mark where a mistake has been made. The other method, which looks like 21% of you do, is punch and roll. And punch and roll is basically editing on the fly. So as you're recording, you make a mistake, you stop the recording, go back to where you made the mistake, and then re record the new line. I can see how this is effective and can save you some time. However, I'm a little bit too neurotic for that and I guess uncoordinated to do the punch and roll. It really comes down to preference. There isn't one that's better or right, or in my experience anyway. I've tried punch and roll a number of times. For some reason, it just takes me out of the moment to have to stop and then go back. I'd rather stay in the moment, mark the mistake, come back to it later because I know that I'm gonna have to, even if I did punch and roll, I would still listen through the audio one more time to make sure there wasn't anything recorded that shouldn't be there. Like, somebody in the floor above me coughing or the dog next door barking or, children running by. Cause again, I have a playground that's like 15 feet outside my door. I'm just going to go through it one more time to make sure that I said everything correctly. There's nothing in it that shouldn't be there. So in my head, why would I do the punch and roll if it takes me out of the moment? I'm going to go through it anyway. If effectively punch and roll is supposed to be, saving you the editing time, I guess. I guess I'm just not coordinated enough for it. I don't know. But there isn't a right or wrong way to do it. It really comes down to preference and what works best for you, because ultimately you focusing on your copy and giving your best performance is what's most important. How you edit really isn't, as long as the job gets done and it's the best and most effective way for you to do it. So I'm hoping for the 12% of you that said, I have no idea what these are, I'm hoping that sort of explains the differences between these two and really your choice. And I also wanted to note there are some of the DAWs. I know Adobe Audition does it, but does anyone have like Reaper or any of the other DAWs that has a punch and roll feature? Let me know because I'm not quite sure, but I know Adobe Audition does, and that's what I use. It does have a punch and roll feature where when you stop the recording, you can put your playhead where you made the mistake. And then once you hit record again, Adobe Audition will go back further than where you placed your playhead about, I think, 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. I'm not sure what the duration is. But that way, you listening to the tone, what you were saying and how you were saying it before it picks up and starts recording where you left your playhead to mark the mistake. So in that respect, I can see that could be helpful. But if you're not coordinated like me, then it doesn't really matter. I don't know. Anyway, tangent 3, 2? How many tangents are we on so far? Anyway, let's go over to the comments and see what you guys are saying. Because again, this isn't the me show. This is, you guys, if you have tips, if you have a perspective, if you have an opinion, whatever you want to share with anybody else watching right now, please share it. That's the idea of these. It's a community chat. It's not just a me chat. First one in was Christina. Am I the only one that ever clicks the thumbs up under the video? You all know it helps the YouTube algorithm. Yes, it does. Thank you for that, Christina. I appreciate you. Make sure that you hit that like button. It does help my channel. I appreciate you. Dylan is here. Hey, Dylan. Good afternoon, all. I've tried both methods. I started with the dog clicker, but quickly switched to punch and roll. It works better for me, and it's just a personal preference. And it is. It comes down to personal preference and what just is easier for you, right? Because if you're not coordinated like me, then it might not work for you. Hang on. We got a super chat. Wow. Super early on for a super chat. Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate you. That's awfully kind of you. Wow, you guys are amazing. Sean said, I woke up this morning to a note saying I was now an Upwork Top Performer Plus. Congratulations. I want to say thank you because my journey began by getting all the free advice I could get on Tuesdays. God bless. Oh, Sean. Congratulations, Sean. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm so thankful that these help. Anything that comes out of my mouth is helpful. Thank you so much for that, Sean, and that's great news. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you again for the super chat. Colette is here. Hey, Colette. I used the dog clicker, but was given a link to Punch and Roll with software method that I'm going to try. So, is it called software method or is it a software method? And if it is just a software, what is it? What is it? Inquiring minds want to know. And have you tried it yet? If you've tried it, how did it work out? Please share with the class, Colette. Dylan says the music gets me every time. As far as making you want to get up and dance, the intro music, or does it just like jolt you awake? Which is it? My cup of tea says I've done both, but have found the marking method helpful for streamlining editing. It's helpful for me too. Also, I like the clicker method because I like to do alternate retakes. So if I make a mistake, I can click it, re-record it, maybe 1 or 3 more times until it feels right. And then when I go back and edit, I have choices, I have options, I have alternate takes to choose from. Because it turns out that I might like the first retake versus the last retake better once I'm listening back through it again. So that's another reason why I like it. But again, it just comes down to preference and what you like. Bears is here. Hey, Bears. Duh, Bears. Hey, Dylan, Angela, and Angelinians. I use Punch and Roll, but it's a personal preference. For sure. Ryder Dude is here. Morning, morning, morning. Best Tom Walker voice. I can't do a Tom Walker voice. No. Eric's here. Good morning. You know, I was clicker for the longest time. Then I switched to Punch and Roll. Oh my God, game changer. That's awesome. You are more coordinated than I am. My cup of tea says also, good morning all. Good morning to you, cup of tea. Sean Lester says I use both. For YouTube VOs, I punch and roll to save time. For audiobooks, I use the clicker so I stay in character. Well, there you go. You can alternate. Pamela says, good morning. Just stumbling around, waiting for brew to brew. For those of you that have your brew already brewed, has been brewed, cheers. I have fingerprints all over this one. Vanessa Yu says, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Vanessa Yu. Dylan says, to Eric, it cuts down on post so much. Christine says, I was waiting for the music to make sure my phone's volume still worked. Still here. Eric says, morning, Pam. Al K Media Group says, I just clap. Nice. I mean, that works, right? I know people who cluck their tongue. Snap your fingers, really anything that makes that mark in the waveform. Masonry Construction says, not sure which works better, my clicker for editing or my clicker with my giant dogs. Actually, my giant dogs do not come running when I use the clicker either way. A cup of tea says, I use a pen with a distinct click as my, oh, that's a good, I haven't heard that one. So kind of like that. That works too, I suppose, until you wear out the clicker thing on your pen and then you don't have a pen. That would drive me nuts. Colette says, morning, everyone. Eric says to Dylan, indeed. Colette says, what up? What up, Colette? Dylan says, I have it set up where I stop recording with one button, then go back 3 seconds, play back, and then start re-recording work another button. So it's not just with one button. You have to hit multiple buttons. You know, this could be something for your editing process. I have one of those stream decks. It just sits on my desk. I don't use it. I should, because it's a really cool tool, because you could program all the buttons on it to do different little micros or macros. So if you're like a streamer or you use a lot of media editing software, whether it's audio, video, or a combination of, you can program these buttons to do these things for you. So you don't have to switch from program to program. You just hit a button and, I mean, the Stream Deck's pretty cool. I need to figure out a good use for it. So, I mean, that could be something, Dylan. Harley says Reaper has punch and roll, but you have to set it up. There are lots of tutorials online. Yeah, that is the great thing about YouTube. I mean, think about where we would be without YouTube. I mean, seriously, I I don't even know how many hours of usable, helpful information and content is available for free, for the most part, right, on YouTube. Man, Colette says thumbs up, everyone. Yes, and not like this thumbs up. I mean, like hit the thumbs up button on the video. Dylan says Audacity and Reaper can both be set up to punch and roll easily. You know, I knew that Audacity did too. I totally forgot that. So it seems that whichever, most, I should say, not whichever, because I don't know which ones don't have it, but it sounds like most of them, most of the DAWs have like a punch and roll feature, which is helpful if you're a punch and roller. Masonry Construction says, I never could get the hang of punch and roll. Also, I was amazed at how much better a mark a clicker made than simply clapping my hands. Very visible spike. And that's why I use a clicker, but I have a cat and she doesn't care about anything I do, so this doesn't really bug her. Well, it bugs her when she's in here and then she leaves because she doesn't like the clicker. Caesar says, you know, depending on whether I'm doing my reads sitting down or standing up, I alternate. Clicker is generally my preference, but perhaps with a little more time, I can get more accustomed to punch and roll. Joe Pace is here. Morning all. I use a combo. When I make a boo-boo, I correct it and later erase the boo-boo. It works. Boo-boo eraser. Dylan says, hey, Caesar. Glad to see you, Caesar. Glad to have you back. Bear says, I tried the clicker, but when I make a mistake, it haunts me through the rest of the rewording and it snowballs. Don't worry about it. Don't let the amount of clicking or retaking scare you. Just think of it as reworking and giving yourself options. I like options. I don't know about you guys. Jamie says, hi all. Hey, Jamie. Hope everyone's keeping well. Audacity and Reaper have punch and roll. Just needs a bit of setup. I like punch and roll, but I still go through the recording. Yeah, I think really either way you go, I mean, you should go through it again anyway, right? That was sort of my ideology, is that if I'm going to go through it anyway, what does it matter if I use punch and roll or a clicker? I guess it would save you time in having to delete things, that's for sure. But going through it one more time, I don't know. I guess just do whatever is easier for you. Eric says, in regards to playback time, there's a free plugin for Audition from Travis Baldry that allows you to adjust that playback time up to 16 seconds. Oh, that's cool. I don't know if I'd want to listen to myself for 16 seconds. Caesar says, that said, hello, Angela. Hello, Caesar. Hello, everyone. I finally did it. I set up my laptop on a stand in the hallway and routed my cables through a conduit, and my studio is so much quieter and cooler. Yes. I tried at the start to have my computer tower in here with me, so it wasn't in the foyer where it's in danger of being kicked and bumped. But it was just too dang hot. I mean, I live in the desert, so having that thing in here in this little tiny room really made this room hot and noisy. So I had no choice but to move it outside this room. Jason says, at the moment, I just pause, snap my fingers, and do it again. I find that makes it real easy to find my mistake. For sure. Bear says, congratulations, Sean. Veronica Thames, am I saying that right? Hello, welcome. I followed your example of snapping when I make a mistake during record, but sometimes when I'm editing later on, I will punch in for a couple of redos. I mean, again, there really isn't a right way to do it, right? You even come across, I mean, again, you're going to find people who tell you this is the right way, this is the wrong way, don't do this is unprofessional. Ultimately, it's up to you. It's your decision, whatever works best for you, because ultimately you want to give the best performance that you can, right? So whatever's going to be easier for you to do, right? Whatever's faster, easier, more convenient, better for you to process, whatever it is, then do that. Caesar says, oh, hi, Dylan. How's tricks? Christina says, I use Reaper Audit. Of course you do. You use all of them because you're one of those like really talented people with all the techie stuff. I use Reaper, Audition, Audacity, Pro Tools, and WavePad, but Reaper is my baby. Brian is here. Hey, hello. Sorry, I'm late. Here's some donuts. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know what? Let's what time is it? All right. It's been about 20-ish minutes. Let's check and see. Okay, wow. So we got 43 votes on the poll. And the poll again is how do you record and edit? We're talking about ways to potentially streamline your process and define the two different ways to edit and record. I thought it was really 50-50. I thought it was a real good 50-50 on which option you chose, whether it's the clicker method or the punch and roll method. But it looks like 70% of you that have voted, 70% of you do the click, snap, clap, to mark a mistake in your waveform. And I keep doing this. I'm doing the chop every time I do that. I realize that. And then 18% of you said punch and roll. And I'm really surprised by that. I thought it would really be like a 50-50. That's interesting. Shows you what I know, right? Bear says, ugh, my typing is horrid. This is why I'm a narrator. Don't apologize. It's okay. Masonry Construction says, my least expensive piece of audio gear, the dog clicker. Really, it is. It really is, right? It's like a couple bucks. You could probably get these at a pet store too, I would think. But I mean, Amazon, I think I got 2 of these for $5 or something close to $7, something like that. I still have my first clicker just gathering dust. This was my very first clicker. It's completely worn out. I wore it out, so I keep it just as a reminder of how far I've come, I know. I'm a weirdo. Dylan says, I use the number pad on my keyboard. I have it set up where plus starts the recording, 0 stops recording, enter goes back 3 seconds and records over the mistake. My hand rests there anyway, so it's handy. And that is another thing that I'm glad you brought up, Dylan. Hotkeys on your keyboard. Most of the DAWs, I know Adobe Audition does for sure, but you can set up like favorites and even like macro processes on a hotkey. So if you have actions like multiple small actions that you do repeatedly, you can record those onto a singular key on your keyboard. So then you just hit the key instead of going, doing multiple clicks. You can program all of that to one process and one key, which is really cool and saves a lot of time. It's the small things, I think, that matter most. Colette says Oh, my coffee cup? Yeah, it's Pennywise. Of course, he's one of my favorite movies. Oh, speaking of which, for my book nerds, for those of you that you probably don't care, so just ignore me for a second. But this weekend, I was so stoked. I went into a thrift store and I found a hardcover book, Thinner. I found Thinner by Richard Bachman, a first edition. And for those of you that don't know, Richard Bachman is Stephen King's pen name. So I found a first edition Thinner by Richard Bachman. Doesn't say Stephen King anywhere on it, obviously, because it was under a pen name. And I got it for like $1.50. So I was so stoked. I mean, it's not like a super valuable book or anything, but I thought it was cool to find a first edition without Stephen King's name on it. So it's on my prize shelf now. Little things. That was my score this weekend. Eric says, and one last thing before I head into hitting some pickups. If you get on a casting roster with a publisher, they want you to be punch and roll. Yes, and I think it's because of, I think it all really comes down to why they're looking for that, right? If they're looking for, if they want, I'm getting ahead of myself. Some casting directors, publishers, clients will ask you for raw, unedited audio. So obviously, punch and roll might take a little less time with the editing process as far as you just getting recordings to them, right? But I don't know if there really is a way to tell if you do or not, other than maybe some artifacts left behind by the clicker if you don't edit it properly. I would assume if you're not good with removing everything that comes with using the clicker method, in post, then it could be an issue. But you also get the recordings cut mid-breath a lot in punch and roll too. So, I mean, either way, there's an opportunity for some artifacts to be left behind in the editing process. Tangent number 5. One Purple Studio. See, I can say it. Good morning. Good morning to you, Purple Studio. Colette says, it's the one Eric is referring to. I've only had time to look at it. This week I'm studying it. Oh, the software for the punch and roll that you mentioned earlier? Tycon Dalar says, instead of using a clicker, I shout curse words. So I always know where I messed up by the clipping. Hey, man, whatever works. Caesar says, for those of us with summer allergies, in lieu of the clicker, we have the sneezer. Can you perfectly time a sneeze, though? Can you summon a sneeze to mark a mistake? If you can, that's talent. Joe Pace sent me a little heart. Thank you, Joe. Caesar says, if Neumann made a dog clicker in collaboration with Merging Technologies and Telefunken Electroacoustic, it'll probably cost something like $1,850. $1,850. I wish there was like a dog clicker effect. I bet you could. You could probably copy a click and then program it to a key on your keyboard and then just mark it like an insert as you're recording as a hotkey. Brian says, I found a dog clicker app for my phone and use that. Oh, like a soundboard? That's cool. Harley says, the macros in Reaper are excellent. I have Alt-N set to normalize to -23 and Alt-V set to paste room tone, things like that, making editing so much faster. Absolutely. And if you're listening to this and seeing these words on the screen, you're going like, there's no friggin' way I'm ever going to understand that. Just trust me when I say that you will understand it if you invest a little bit of time, try it out, practice it. It will start to make sense. I promise you. It all looked like a completely different language to me too in the beginning. And a lot of other people would say the same. So, start learning that language and it'll definitely save you time if you can learn to program like shortcuts on your keyboard for these little editing processes. It will save you time for sure. Harley then says publishers want the result of punch and roll. They don't actually care how you accomplish it. And that's ultimately, I think, where I was going. They want it to be clean, right? So there's really a way for either way to leave artifacts and not be completely clean in either method. But, Jamie says, OMG, I love that book. one of the first ones I've read in horror, and I don't do much horror. Great find, Angela. I was super stoked about that. It didn't have a dust jacket though. That was the only thing, but I figured it was still a first edition Richard Bachman, thinner. It's black and red. It matches my little library nook in my room. So I thought it was a find. And it was $1.50. I mean, and the lady that was selling it to me, she says, "Oh, Richard Bachman, who's that? I've never heard of that author." And I said, "Ma'am, that is Stephen King's pen name." She's, "Oh, you're not charging me more for this. This is still $1.50, right?" Yeah. Okay, good. Christina says the clicker is the equivalent of the movie industry's clapboard. It's the way sound designers are able to align the sound vox to the visual movie. Clickers are also needed for audio drama lineup. For what's the word I was looking for? Synchronization, right? Yes. Caesar says, "Oh my God, I used to have a first edition of The Long Walk by Richard Bachman. It was damaged during a violent tropical storm." Oh, no. Roof partially caved and flooded the library. That is terrible. Terrible news. I'm sorry for that, Caesar. Colette says, "I was using the clicker and screwed up 4 times in a row. I kept getting lost trying to pick the best of 4. Depressing." That's not depressing. That's doing your job. You're trying to get the best take. That's not depressing. You shouldn't fault yourself for being human, for making a goof here or there. We all do it. No stinking thinking, Colette. It's normal. It's not anything to be depressed about. Gregory says, "I actually had to get used to the clicker. I learned punch and roll when I was in radio 30 years ago on audio tape." Well, you don't have to use the clicker if you've already learned punch and roll. You don't have to unlearn it and do something different. Just do what works. Rider Dude says to Caesar, "I'm quite sure a dog clicker can be found for that price on the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica." Probably. Bear says, "This will all make sense eventually." It will. It will. It will. It will. It will. I am finally admitting that my voice is okay. I have 2 more authors contacting me. You need to get around this. Your voice is fine. Your voice is better than fine. You are your own. We are all our own worst critics when it comes to our voices. I'm listening to myself right now in my own head and I hate it. But it's not my opinion that matters because we're just so judgy. We're so critical of ourselves. Don't let that stop you. Glenn York says, "Currently working on creating a DIY demo. All of this information is great and will be added to the editing process. Thanks all." That's great, Glenn. I'm glad to hear that. And that's ultimately the goal here, is to share information. Matthew and Ashley White says, "As I'm working, getting better or getting into VO, I've really appreciated all your content." Well, good. Good. That is my goal, is just to share. Share it. Christine says, "Elevate" under SK's actual name was good too. Elevate. I've never read that one. I'm going to have to add it to my list of my mile-long TBR. Dylan says, "I have a first edition of The Regulators by Richard Bachman. Is that worth anything, book nerds?" You know what? At this point, I don't really care what a book is worth. It's what it's worth to me, I think, that matters. I have a lot of first editions from Anne Rice. I have a few Stephen King first editions, and I want them because they have value to me. I don't care what they're worth in the world, because I don't ever plan on selling them. I want them just for me, right? Like I have a first edition Interview with a Vampire, one of my favorite books of all time, written the same year I was born. So, I mean, those things matter to me, not that because it's worth anything, monetarily. Masonry Construction says, "Colette, if you are having trouble picking, just rejoice because it means that your work is very consistent." There you go. You're doing your job, Colette. You're doing your job. You're saying it multiple times because you want to get it right, because you want to do your job, because because you care. That's a good thing. It's nothing to be depressed about. Matthew and Ashley White says, as I'm working on my setup, I've really been enjoying your content. Well, good. I hope I'm, at the very least, somewhat entertaining. You guys can all point and laugh at all my tangents. And then sharing knowledge and information is great. It's kind of an aside. Not really. Not really. Colette says Thinner was scary. Didn't James Woods make the movie? I want to say he was in it. Yes. Wasn't he the main actor? I think so. Oh, Elevation. Yes, I have heard that one. I've heard of that one, but I have not read it. I have not read that one. I'll have to read it. Leslie says Thinner was my fave of mine too. Sinister. Yeah. I'd like to find like a first edition It. For obvious reasons, a big Pennywise fan, in case you couldn't tell. I've got a few Pennywises behind me. I'd like to go through my library and get like first editions of everything. Just 'cause. Why not? Right? All right. We've only been on for like 35 minutes, so it seems like it's been like 2 hours already. Let's go back and check the votes again. And sorry, I'm using 2 screens. I'm totally still not good at this. So again, today's poll was, how do you record and edit? And if anybody watching, if you have another like tip or I had another idea for streamlining your editing process. But if anybody watching has any tips or anything at all to share with anybody about editing, please do that in the comments. But today's poll again was, what is your preference? Do you click, snap, clap to mark mistakes so it makes a mark in your waveform? Or do you do the punch and roll method? And it still surprises me. 64% of you said you do the click, snap, and clap method, and 22% of you do the punch and roll method. And I thought it would be a good 50-50. But it seems that more of you do the like visual marking to mark mistakes. And that's still surprising to me. I thought there's a whole lot more punch and rollers. But my other editing tip is, I've heard of a few people that they'll record a whole like audio file, right? Let's just say it's a chapter in an audiobook. And they'll listen through it multiple times, each time for a different purpose. Meaning they'll listen through it once, and it could be a half an hour of audio. And they'll listen through the entire thing for retakes. Then they'll go back and listen to the entire thing again for background noise. And then they'll go back and listen through the entire thing again for mouth noise or something else, echo. I mean, any little process. They'll listen through specifically for one thing at a time. And obviously that's going to take hours and hours and hours of extra time that you don't have to spend doing that. Once you record one singular file, you'll get to a point, if you're not already there, where it's a process that you listen through it once. Here's what I do, just if this helps at all. I record an audio file. I have all of my effects saved onto my rack preset in Adobe Audition. You can put all of your racks, and I have lots of videos here on my channel that go through the different steps of this. You can save them as one rack, meaning they're all together. All their individual settings are set to just the way you like it. And all you have to do is push one button. It applies all of your effects on that one audio file. And then once that's done processing, I'll listen through it once to check for retakes, to eliminate any further mouth noise that my effects didn't catch or was too loud for my effects to effectively reduce. Check for background noise, check for, the dog barking next door, anything that shouldn't be there, right? I'll do all of those processes in that one go through. And then my very last step is to normalize it to -3. And then I'll spot check the room noise, right? Let's just say this is an audiobook. And I'll spot check check the amplitude statistics to make sure that my peak amplitude is right, my RMS is right, check the head and the tail, make sure those are right for room tone length or duration. And then if that's right, then I save it as an MP3, and then move on to the next one. So I've got my process down to like a 2-to-1 or even a less than 2-to-1, right? So for every finished hour of audio only takes me about 2 to an hour, like an hour and a half to 2 hours of editing and processing. And if you're at the point where you're at like a 6-to-1 ratio or a 7-to-1 ratio, don't worry. You'll whittle that down quickly the more you do it and the more that you discover ways to streamline your process, much like I did. Took a while to get everything just right, but once you have it all down, it'll be much faster and easier. Yes. Okay, so back to the comments. Joy is here. Hey, Joy. Hello, everyone from Southfield, Michigan, where we have a mix of sun and clouds today. You should be a weather girl. I do the punch and roll method, and yes, I do multiple takes because I want to get it right. It's awesome, Joy. Christina says, it done. I finished edit. Off to the copyright office and the editor's final review. Congratulations, Christina. That's amazing. Masonry Construction says, my new support group, Luddites for Clickers. Caesar says, since we have half an hour left, I'd like to announce that Lewitt has recently launched the Connect 2, an ultra-compact single mic input audio interface with built-in effects for $180. Really? Has Booth Junkie done a video on it yet? Hang on, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to go check this out. The Connect 2 from Lewitt. Thank you for that, Caesar. Caesar's our resident tech guy. Harley N says, I edit retakes as the first pass, but I don't listen through. I only look for the marks. I listen through once after that to tweak everything. You could do all of that in one listen through. Dylan says, oh, I had $1 for every time I flubbed my... If I had $1 for every time I flubbed my pickup line and had to punch and roll again and again and again, I wouldn't need to get paid for my work. Gregory says, I use the clicker when recording on Audition because it's easy to remember to do. I keep forgetting the dang keys on my iMac to press to do punch and roll. Dang, 56. Jamie says, I think one of the issues I have is when I listen to the audio, retakes, edit, and master, and then I won't be happy with it, and then I'll tinker on it some more. I have to learn to leave it alone. Yes. Because Jamie, don't strive for perfect. If it's fine, it's fine. But if you're thinking that it doesn't sound as good as it could, because our ear, this trained ear that we develop after years of doing this, it's in its training process. So you're going to start to hear things that you didn't hear before. So that's a completely valid concern, Jamie. But if you're hearing something that maybe could be fixed, just get feedback on it, right? Submit it to like your fellow Platinum Group members like Chris and Caesar and everyone else with a really well-developed ear. And they'll tell you if you do need to do anything with it, because you might not need to. It might be fine just as it is. Caesar says Lewitt also recently launched the Lewitt Ray microphone, a cardioid condenser with autofocus, so it dynamically adjusts gain levels based on your distance from the capsule. Interesting. Lewitt's amazing. Making some really innovative stuff. Colette says, I love Anne Rice's vampire books, but my favorite is A Cry to Heaven. Excuse me. I think I have that book, but I have not yet read it. I have quite a few Anne Rice books, but I have not read A Cry to Heaven yet, I think. Christina says, should I also add in 101,000 words? Good Lord. That's a lot of words. Masonry Construction says, working primarily as a writer, every time I finish a draft, I go through and review it and always find compelled to edit something. As Angela says, leave it alone. I've got to learn that. Yes, just leave it alone already. Goodness gracious. All right, guys. Well, if that's pretty much it for editing content and helpful tips and tricks. They're trips from me and everyone else watching. Then I guess that'll wrap up today's community chat. But if you're watching this and if you have some topics or some questions or something that you think that would be good in a community setting for multiple perspectives, then please leave those comments down below. If you're watching this in the replay, if you're team replay, please be sure to consider subscribing. It really does help my channel grow. And of course, hit that like button. That always helps. I appreciate everybody spending some time with me and everyone else watching. I really appreciate that. And I guess I'll see you all next week. I will be back next week, same time, same place, same day. You got the idea. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to She Lancer Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. That's me. For more information about me, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com, or hop on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.